Our economic are not in a good shape. But what I feel good in the budget is defense, because the most important thing is if you can build roads, bridge, schools, hospitals. If there is no security in the country, there is all of them, people will not enjoy it. But as they put, I see Mr. President put at least 800 billion in defense. So that shows that he is really ready now to fight insurgency and banditry. But the debt service, as I said last year, I'm not happy with it, because look at how the debt service doubled from last year to this year. So seriously, just what I will assure to this nation is they should be patient, because Mr. President explained to us clearly that we are majority of the project we are going to do is by borrowing. So if you look at the borrowing, definitely the debt service must go high. And if you didn't borrow, you can stay up to 2023 without any legacy by this government. And this government promised people change, and still people are suffering. So definitely by this 2021 budget, we are expecting, as I see, there is increase in education, defense. So this means there is some changes, but definitely in terms of security, that is what is worrying me. This killing every day by day, day by day, day by day. But we hope this 800 billion will not go to some people's pocket. If they can really use it in terms of security, we are sure, inshallah, by next year, we will tackle this insecurity in this country.
Haven't seen how the budget now go through all the aspects from A to Z. There is the duty of the National Assembly now to do the needful. Do the needful, you can find out that in 2020, that is a time that you find out the budget of this country started from the beginning of the year and end by the end of the year. So by presenting this proposed budget today by Mr. President, the National Assembly is going to do the needful to make sure the appropriate things are done, to make sure that things are done in the rightful way. Haven't seen the dignity and the integrity of the leadership of the National Assembly, both the Senate and the House of Rep. You have seen that they are the people that really stand for the masses of this country, in the sense that the proposed budget is going to see the light of the day.
Sir, when the president was speaking about analyzing the budget document, he got to the National Assembly and paused. In fact, he coughed. He has allocated 128 billion naira to National Assembly. Would that be sufficient for the National Assembly 2020?
Definitely, that aspect is referred to the National Assembly leadership and the executives. So it's out of that, we know that definitely there is a lot to do in National Assembly.
Why do you think the president coughed?
The president did not cough. Someone will be hooked up due to what he's discussing. So it's not about the aspect of the paragraph of the National Assembly that leads him to cough. So coming to put that is about the National Assembly budget that leads him to cough is not the fact on it.
Okay, again, our debt service is 3-point-something trillion. How long are we going to continue this way?
Yeah, definitely. There is no any country on this world, even America. You find out there is no any country on this world that will develop without borrowing. So instead of us to sell the investment of this country that we already secured, it's better we borrow. But all the borrowing should particularly be invested in the aspect in which there will be a turnover. in order to service those loans.
My position has not changed actually until the security situation is addressed properly or surmounted. I still strongly believe that more should be done or should be given to the security agencies to tackle the security challenges that have been bedeviling this country. Without security, every other thing will not work. And the Constitution is very clear. Security and welfare of its citizens is the main purpose of government. I'm glad that the government is paying attention to the issue of welfare of its citizens, especially in during this period of COVID pandemic. But that of security is still not enough. And I hope that the government will still look at that so that we can overcome the security challenges that we can handle or we can tackle. That is very, very important. Without security, all the good things or those things that are in the budget cannot be implemented. For example, you give a contract for road construction, the contractor cannot go to the site if it is not safe. The farmers cannot go to their farms if it is not safe. The people cannot even enjoy whatever income they have if they are not safe. Even now in Abuja, from Abuja here to Gwagwalada is becoming an issue, and that is because of security. So the government should still look at what it is doing in terms of security. In addition to that, I have now realized from this government, the coming on board of the government of President Muhammad Buhari, who has very good intentions, well-meaningful intention, presents the budget, but the impact and the implementation of the budget is still the concern. And since it is not President himself that is doing it, it means something is wrong down the line, or something is not being done enough to make sure that the budget that is articulated and presented by Mr. President is well implemented and the impact is felt. You hear big number of money allocated, but you don't see it on ground. As the Hausa say, "In akwe biki agidanku, agani akasa." What that means is that the dog says, if they say there's party in our house, make I see the bone on ground. But we don't see it, so they need to do something about that.
All right, thank you very much.
So we have a deficit in the financing of the budget, which has led to, borrowing, a lot of borrowing, which is one of the issues that the lawmakers to also raise while passing the MTF and FSP. So what is your take on this?
Well, I think it's a budget that is best described as a promising budget. Promising budget based on expectations, positive expectations and negative expectations. The economy globally is not good, and we are not going to deny the fact that Nigeria will still face some very tough times ahead. But the good news is that the president in this budget is conscious of the fact that the economy is not going to be very friendly. They have put in place a good benchmark of $40 per barrel. They have equally, deliberately set aside some hundreds of billions for small-scale industries. They have equally talked about the need to make sure the roads are motorable, the roads are completed. If these are done, we're not going to feel the pains and the consequences of a bad economic situation. Because jobs will be created, the small-scale industries will flourish, and there will be free movement of goods and services, and that will reduce the pains of a poor economic recession that we are going into. So that will create jobs for people, and there will be security of lives and properties. I think this is what I'm taking home. Then again, he talked about so many roads that have been abandoned, like Kabatu-Ilorin Road, which is part of my territory. I feel highly delighted that that road was mentioned by the president. So once the roads are good, and there's 5% interest for small-scale industry, and for the first time in our history, they are talking about 1 year moratorium for small-scale industries. You see, if these are thoroughly implemented, I can tell you that as poor as the global economy is already predicting for next year, we may not feel the pain as much because the policies that are required as a safeguard, as a cushion for a global economic recession is being already known and is put is already put on black and white for people to know that the government is conscious of it and for the implementing. The prayer is that let them implement all that they have said in terms of the policy. Don't let us look at the money. Don't look at the figure. Just look at the policy that has been put in place to governize the economic activities of the country. Once you have good road network in the country, once you have good road network and a rail system being focused, and again, the president said his focus is to complete ongoing projects. Fantastic. A typical Nigerian politician will not be thinking of completing ongoing projects. They'll be thinking of new projects. So if these projects are completed, you network the north with the south, south with the west, east with the north. I mean, economic activities will boom because the economists are telling us that next year may not be too friendly economically. It's a global problem. But what the president has done, the president is conscious of it, his economic team are conscious of the fact that the economy situation globally next year may be tougher. But once we have put in place the policies that are required, I'm sure we are not going to feel the pains as much.
Thank you very much for implementing this budget, even as it completes.
Well, we have not yet completed the budget process. It has just started. And I want to tell you that we are going to work very well to make sure we scrutinize the budget and give it the proper attention so that it will be packaged in a way that will meet the aspirations of the people of this country. And once we do that, I can assure you that it will be fully implemented, even though it is the responsibility of the executive to get it executed. But the way we're going to get it done will leave the executive with no option but to get it implemented, because we are going to package it in a way, as I said earlier, that is going to go with the aspirations of the people of this country, in a way that it will improve our infrastructure, because it's going to be targeted as building the necessary infrastructure that will create that environment, that economic environment that will turn our country to Eldorado or near Eldorado.
Expecting from the budget?
Oh, a wonderful budget that's going to be packaged, as I said earlier, in line with the wishes and aspirations of the people of this country. We are going to work, as I said, put due diligence, employ every means available to get it packaged in line, in a way that will go in line with the wishes and aspirations of the people of this country.
Does the size of the deficit give you any cause for
I
concern?
do not want to go into details. The details have not been, we've not got together. He mentioned the size of the deficit, but we need to see the details so as to be able to make proper comment about, what it entails.
Yeah, but the thing is, from what we have read about
It's a good way to go. And you remember that when he came on board, he started with all the ongoing projects. And so it's a continuation of his decision to complete ongoing projects. Because whether you like it or not, they are taxpayers' money. The essence of those projects initially, of course, is to improve the economy of the country. And so what he's doing, or what he has done, by dedicating more funds to complete those projects, is to continue the development of the country.
the fiscal deficit.
Sorry?
The fiscal deficit.
You should expect fiscal deficit because we have low revenue. You know the COVID affected us. Even apart from that, Mr. President did say that the greatest problem we have is revenue generation. And you know that as Committee of Finance, we have made efforts to ensure that more revenue comes into the coffers of government. And so we are also going to do a comprehensive review. The MTEF that was passed had given the committee an approval to carry out a review of all agencies as we have in this country, to determine which ones are supposed to go out of budget and which ones can sustain themselves. What we have seen mainly during our review is the fact that most agencies spend their IGR rather than remitting it to the CRF. So we believe that strongly that that is not good, it's not good for us, and we cannot allow that to continue. So definitely, when you have shortfall in revenue, you need to borrow money to augment your budget. So that's why you talk about deficit finance.
Nigerians say that the National Assembly has not been very effective in oversight. If not, revenue generating agencies like that cannot take in all the ideas and spending it.
No.
How are you people prepared to oversight the executive properly?
No, I think that for us, that is not true. The National Assembly, at least these 9 assemblies, have tried their best. We are trying our best. And I'm saying that in the next phase, we're already talking to a nice seat company that can give us an online monitoring, whereby when you make the money, You can, as you are making the money, we are seeing it online. And then we are able, rather than waiting and do a post-mortem approach. Thank you very much.
It is not the size of a budget that actually matters. It is not also the beautiful plans and projections we have that matter, but the discipline to implement them. This is October, for example. Yes, we all agree that the coronavirus affected the implementation of the 2020 budget. But I want to tell you that even as at now, October, there are so many of the capital components of 2020 budget which has not taken off. Because most ministries, departments, and agencies have not, adhered very well to the procurement law and have not exercised adequate discipline in the implementation of the budget. So if you have a budgetary framework laid out like this, you have beautiful plans in them, and the National Assembly goes a step further to approve them earlier than usual, meaning that the January to December budget cycle remains. How well do we implement them? How well do we adhere to the timeline for the implementation of these budgetary plans? Those are the things that, that matter quite a lot and affect, the performance of our budget year in, year out. And those are my concerns. Well, you see, we have to be very realistic. The expectations that we have is that non-oil revenue will increase. But from which of the sources are we expecting? Usually from taxation, from the Federal Inland Revenue Service, from the customs, and so on. But, talking about diversification should take us more to, industrialization. Not necessarily, the taxes you get, from import, and then even the realities we have today that the import level are also falling, again, because of the effect of the coronavirus. So until we have a very sound policy on industrialization, it may be very, very difficult for us to talk about diversifying the economy. And again, I must also commend the president for one particular thing that I noticed in the speech that he rendered today, which has to do with education. The plans by the federal government to give teachers a special salary scale and to also provide incentive for young Nigerians who are going into study of education is a very commendable one. Because everywhere in the world, until you realize the fact that you need to develop your human capital, no other thing develops. And our human capital, to be sincere, in Nigeria is very low. If the president, gives out this policy and the federal government will be disciplined enough and sincere to follow through on the policy to fund education, to give a prioritized funding of education, and especially teacher education, I'm sure that we'll reap the benefits of this in the next 5 to 10 years as a nation.
Nigerian doesn't know. Our revenue has been troubling. Take, for instance, our expectation from oil is really dwindling. It's dwindling because of so many reasons. Partly because of the way our people are making it so difficult for us to get our quota. Secondly, because of the struggle between the Russia and the American, and partly because it's affecting other oil producing states. And oil is a major revenue and it's sick. It's sick. And other area of revenue generation, the IGR, we are still struggling. And we must run government. That's why we are relying on loan. I know it's doing government of tomorrow today, but if you look at the way this government is handling infrastructure, you know that some of the infrastructure they are providing will last for the next 25, 26 years. Which means because those things are going to last for a very long time, it's going to really pay for those borrowing. They are going to pay. It's going to pay itself naturally. Therefore, I know it's difficult now, and we are relying so much on borrowing. But I also know that if you judiciously make use of the fund, it will pay itself later. Thank you.
Afternoon.
The president just laid the budget.
I want to think the budget itself is aggressive in nature, and the intent is to ensuring that ongoing projects are completed, especially the infrastructures. And when infrastructures are built, SMEs, small scale enterprise, will strive. that in itself will reduce the incidence of unemployment in our society. I think it's a welcome idea. I am particularly elated about my constituency, Apapa, that the Apapa Oshodi or Oshoki is mentioned in this budget. I mean, the essence of it's been completed. And of course, to the rail line to Ibadan too. I think it's a welcome idea and concept.
Talking about, look at the borrowing or the debt deficit mentioned. Are we not, Nigerians are worried about it. What's your take on that?
You see, the incidence of borrowings is not new in a preposition like this. What is important is that what are we borrowing for? If we are borrowing to pay overheads, that's where the rules, the cry is. But if we are borrowing to put in place infrastructures that we start enjoying the infrastructures today and we will be paying at a later date, so be it. It is allowed. It is what is wrong is where such is used for recurrent expenditures, and you can see that this actually is tailored towards repayments and capital expenditures, which is novel and good for our system.
And presented the budget today, and
well, actually, the issue of budget deficit we cannot avoid it for now because of the level of revenue generation. But the important part is what the money is actually being used for, and that's where we are trying to this time around ensure that at least over 60% of actual releases goes to physical infrastructure, the capital projects. And despite the fact that we had this COVID crisis, during the president's statement, he ensured that 50%, minimum of 50% of all capital budget were released during the 2020 budget session. So that's why we are very happy that at least for the remaining 2 months, we believe that nothing less than 20% will still be released. So if we can make 70% to 80% capital budget release, then we'll be home and dry. So it is very important that it's not only the size of the budget that matters, but the distribution of releases during actual expenditure. And that's what we are going to monitor this time around in the Ninth Assembly, to ensure that capital releases are monitored and implementations are carried out effectively. Is very key for us.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.